Welcome back to College 101. Today is the day we finally get into all the college topics that I knew you came here looking for. If you're just joining us now, we do have a few videos about some personal finance topics that I think are really important for college students, and I would love for you to go back and watch those. But if not, let's start here. Just like the first day of college, this is going to be about course syllabuses or syllabi. I honestly still don't really know which one it is. But a course syllabus is just what the professor gives you on the first day of class to tell you about all the course policies and all the ins and outs of the course. As an example, I'm going to show you a syllabus and walk through it from one of my upper level chemical engineering courses. I think it's a great example of a syllabus. It checks almost all the boxes, has some added stuff, and I'm also going to show you the one thing it's missing from another one of my syllabuses. So the first section of the syllabus actually isn't on screen right now. The reason for that, it's way up here at the top, is because it's got personal information. But the first section on most any syllabus is going to be the course information as far as who the professor is, when it meets, where it meets, any prerequisites that you're supposed to have taken, and especially if you look at that list of prerequisites and say, oh, I haven't taken that, or I'm not taking that right now, check with the professor and make sure. Also, if there's any of that information that you don't expect, check with your registered courses and then talk to the professor and see if there was a last-minute change or if you're just in the wrong place. It's also going to have information about office hours for your professor. I'll talk more about how important office hours are in another video. Basically, office hours are the times that your professor sets aside to say, my door is open, come and ask me questions about homework, about the class, anything like that. I highly recommend using them early and often. Maybe even go into first set of office hours before you even have any homework, just to introduce yourself and ask for any tips for the semester. It's also going to have information about teaching assistants, TAs, and their office hours. I'm going to make a video about TAs because they are super important, but same sort of thing as the professors. It's really important to know when their office hours are and how you can best get in contact with them. They're the ones who typically grade your homework, might even grade your tests, things like that, so it's super important to know them, get to know them, and be on good terms with them. So this first section that you see here on screen, course objectives, honestly kind of fluff. You can pretty much skip over this. If you don't know what the objectives are for your course, you really got to question why you're taking it, right? It's going to be things like learn about this and solve problems like this. It's just something that they put on a syllabus, kind of like a course description, but hopefully you already know what the course is about. The next section is the textbook. Textbook information is good. I'm going to make a video about textbooks. There's a lot of videos I want to make if you haven't noticed, but it'll tell you about what textbook or textbooks you need or any other materials you might need. However, just a sneak preview, don't always go out and buy the textbook. Talk to the professor, talk to TAs, talk to past students, talk to current students, and see how many of them are actually in the textbook, because sometimes you don't need them. The next section I would skip to, and skip past all this stuff first, is going to come down here to this grading section. So you see here where it's got the grade breakdown for the course, where it says homework is 25%, quizzes are 5%, final exam 30%, midterms 30%, and open-ended problems 10%. This should all add up to 100%, and that midterm exam's 3 for 30% means each midterm is worth 10%. The reason this is so important, and again I'm going to make a video doing numbers with all this, is that this is going to determine how successful you are in the course, and it's going to let you know how you should spend your time. For example, this course, homework is 25% of your grade, and if I remember correctly, this course has like 30 homeworks. So every single homework is worth almost 1% of your grade. So if you drop 3 or 4 or 5 homeworks because you get busy, then all of a sudden you're down like a half letter grade. You know, that could take you from a B to a B minus, let's say, or something. It's also important to know how big your final exam is. This section is also going to have things about projects, if there's projects, papers, research, anything like that. And this is going to let you know what is most important, how to best spend your time. The next section after that, if you scroll back up, is all these little sections here describing things. So that first one about reading, that one the professor is always going to tell you to read the textbook or read the course materials beforehand. That depends, I will say, on the course and on your learning style. It sometimes depends on the course, because if there's going to be a quiz and you have to have done the reading for that quiz, you have to do the reading if you want to do well on the quizzes. However, some courses just won't have any quizzes like that, and if they don't, and if reading is not helpful for you, I would recommend at least skimming it. Maybe look for like some bolded terms, look at section headings and things like that. That'll help prepare you and prime you for class to hopefully learn a little bit better. But don't spend hours and hours reading, especially if it's not your best way of learning. But even for anybody, that's probably not always the best way to spend your time. The reading section for this syllabus is important though, because they're quizzes, and it explains that the quizzes are based on the reading, so you gotta do it. Then you see there's a section about homework. It's going to tell you about what they're typically like, if solutions are going to be posted, and things like that. This next section, OEPs. This is why this section is so important. This class was really fun because he did what he called open-ended problems. And what he would do is he would take scenes from movies, and he would say, let's try and put some numbers to this. And it was totally open-ended. There really wasn't much of a wrong answer. It was more about the process. But this is sort of a weird assignment type that none of us had seen before, and so this section explains how we can do well on these. You also see there's a section about exams. That's important to know what structure they're going to be. Sometimes it'll tell you if it's going to be multiple choice, free response, short answer, a mix of them all, if it's going to be an essay or a writing section, things like that. And then also really important is when your final exam is, because final exams, usually you don't have any leeway about when you can take them, and you definitely want to avoid having too many tests on the same day or to have overlapping tests. The next section I would look for, and a section that this one is actually kind of missing, is a late work policy. If you see in this homework section here, he does have a line about his late work policy. His late work policy is pretty simple. Turn it in up to 1 week late and get half credit. Late work policy is so important because this tells you, again, how to spend your time. Hopefully you just don't turn in any assignments late, but that's probably not realistic. And so when you do get into a crunch time and you have to make decisions, it's important to know what will be best for your grades. If you've got 2 homework assignments, and one like this is 50% off if it's even 10 minutes late, versus one that says 10% off for every day it's late, do this one first because you would have the biggest penalty. Do the other one later, turn it in a day or 2 late, and you can still get 80 or 90%. There are lots of different late work policies. Some of them might say no late work, some might say by the end of the semester, some might say before the next test. They're all going to be different, the percentages are going to be different, so learn these and look at them to make decisions when you come down to those crunch periods where you've really got to just choose what gets done first, or maybe what gets done at all. Here you see there's a chart of competencies for ABET, that's the Accreditation Board of Engineering and Technology, I think. Again, this is kind of fluff you can skip over. This basically says, according to this organization, this is why this class is important. So this next part is a concept web. Not all classes are going to have this or even need this, but a lot of them will. And I think this is a great way to learn, and I'm glad that the press provided this, because the best way to learn is to create relationships between ideas, not just memorize facts. So again, this is kind of above and beyond. Not all professors do this, but he did. The last section on this syllabus is policy statements. These are things about academic honesty, cheating, Title IX, sexual harassment, disabilities, all the things that they have to do to be compliant with different regulations. They're pretty much the same from class to class, and so if you've read it one time through for what class, or maybe your first semester, check all your classes to see if there are any differences, and then you pretty much know the gist of it. Alright, so that was that syllabus for that course. Like I said, it had a lot of things. It even had an extra concept web. The one thing that I think it was really missing, and he actually had on his website, so it was fine, is a course schedule. Most college courses are going to have every single lecture lined out, every homework assignment, every test, every reading assignment. And so this is from another one of my courses. It's kind of like my capstone course, but you can see here kind of what that looks like. Hopefully this is going to be readable, but you see it's got the date, it's got the day of the week even, the number of lecture, the topic, any readings you have to do beforehand, any homeworks that are due. It has when the tests are listed, and it does that for the entire semester. Those things are super important because when it comes to college, there really shouldn't be any surprises when it comes to the classes themselves. Things might come up in your life that are going to take you by surprise, and you're going to have to adapt and schedule and prioritize. But as far as the classes, you're going to know when your tests are, when your homeworks are due, and kind of what schedule that's on. A lot of classes are actually pretty regular. Homework is due every Friday, homework is due every class period, things like that. The main thing to look at with this, I would say, is when the tests or projects are due, and then compare all of your different classes against each other. That way you can see, oh, this week is going to have 3 tests on it, or 4 tests, or 2 tests. Some schools have a dedicated midterm week. My school didn't, but they always kind of seem to line up because most classes have 2 or 3 midterms. And so if you take a semester and split up into 2 or 3 parts, they all kind of tend to overlap. And so making the schedule and saying this is when they are, this one comes first, that's really important. So again, a syllabus is a really useful document. Reference them early, reference them often, and make the most of them, and it will really help you be successful. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the College Guide. Hopefully this is more of the kind of college content you guys were looking for, and I'm excited to make more videos on topics like these. Let me know if you have any questions about syllabuses, anything you really liked about them, anything a professor did that was really above and beyond, or the worst one you've ever seen. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.